Hey everybody out there, this is Modern Day Duelist, and today for you guys I wanted to discuss something that I had a discussion with a couple of friends of mine recently when we were at a tournament, and it's something that I feel like I wanted to elaborate on and talk about. And that's the different playtesting habits that people have. And it's something that I've noticed throughout the course of me playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For 18 plus years, playing in different tournaments, regionals, YCSs, SJCs, whatever have you, for a multitude of years. It's something that I've noticed, and it's something that I've always felt like players don't think enough on, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So, what am I talking about here? About playtesting, per se. How can this make me and become a better duelist? Well, what I'm talking about is what decks do you playtest against, right? So, I've seen this in two different ways. There's people who playtest online and strictly online and then go to events and play at events. And sometimes they have success. The reason they just play online and then go to the events is because they have no one around them to play with. Now this has become more of a better thing, especially with the advent of Dueling Book, and before that when we had Duel Links and things of, not Duel Links, but Dueling Book and its predecessor, who I am literally having a brain fart on. How could I forget it? But I am. But you know what I'm trying to say. This has become more of a thing because, especially if it's people who you know and whatnot. And I've advocated that's a good thing, especially if you're playing up in the higher ranking echelons of those online simulators. If you're playing the lower rankings, I don't know how much experience that's going to give you for playing when you go to a major tournament like a regionals or YCS. But if you're playing in the higher rankings, yes, I agree that this is a thing. But I will also stipulate that I have always felt like, and I've seen it countless times, it is no substitute for playing in person if you have the opportunity to, because playing in person teaches you a lot more skills than playing on an online simulator. It's just factual. Yes, you'll still have a good chance of winning, and if that's your only option, that's fine. But you have a better chance, I feel like, from playing in real life and playtesting. But that's not what I'm talking about here. It's when players decide that they only want to play against meta decks and nothing else. This is something I've noticed recently. I'm not calling anybody out, I really am not, but it's something I've noticed. And when people play against the same people all the time in playtesting and don't go outside and play against other people. And I mean not just your local level, but they go to different locals. Some people do this. There's a good amount of people I know personally that do this. Those players are a little bit better, but what I'm trying to say is you go outside. If you want to go, if there's a major event coming in the next month, you go to different locals and play test against people. You play test against different decks. You prepare yourself for the possibility that you may go into a regionals or a YCS and face against Rogue and actually get your butt kicked because you don't know what the heck that deck does. Personally, and maybe this is me being a little bit biased, but I've seen this happen countless times when I play with that dang Galaxy deck. People just don't know what the deck does. They don't have any idea. And granted, maybe it's just me because I'm a deck builder at heart. I watch all the cards that come out. I research every deck that comes out. Yes, I don't have the time to go play at every events anymore because there's other things I'm doing with life. But literally, this is something I want to imbue into people from experience. Go test against other decks. Play other decks. I don't care if it's just 5 to 6 games you play with them. Play with them. Play one game with them. That way you at least have some knowledge that when you go to play, maybe a year from now, maybe a month from now, against a said deck, you know how to beat that deck. I've seen this happen recently with someone. Someone I know personally, I'm not going to say who, lost to Black Wings. Lost a match to Black Wings because they didn't know what Black Wings did. I've seen this happen with Gladiator Beast because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know they tagged out. They didn't read the cards. They didn't know. And they were young people, they didn't know, but they still, I'm like, these are basic decks that were competitive and still have a kick to them. Know your archetypes. Thank you. Literally, he ran into a Kalut and didn't know what the heck Kalut did. And lost the duel because of that. Yeah, I kind of felt, I sat there, and he had the new Blackwing support, but I literally sat there and went, kids these days. I'm not hating on anybody, but it's literally what I'm trying to say here is, as a person from my perspective and from a third-party view, and from my experience personally, it's a good idea to have some knowledge of different decks. You can play against a meta deck multiple times, and eventually you will know what that deck does. Even if he's a very good player, you will know his tendencies after playing against him maybe 10 times. You know how he acts, you know what he does. You know, it's like when you play against your friend multiple times, or you've been playing against him for a year. You know exactly where he's going to place that deadly back row. You know exactly what he's probably thinking. You know when he's holding back, waiting for you to commit to the board, and then he trounces you. You know these things because you've played them against enough. When you get to that point, especially when you know the deck that well, it's best to just go to place against someone else for a bit, because literally, I'm telling you, that's not going to help you. That is not good playtesting skills. That is not the best way to use your time in practicing. It's good to have a good very skilled group of small, good playtesters, or a small group, and you play against them. But you want to get outside that bubble sometimes and play against random decks, random things, practice against other decks, because you may be at a regionals, you're on the bubble, and you lose to a random deck that you had nothing to happen about. I can't tell you how many times I've personally, when I've gone to regionals or even at YCSs, where I win games straight up because opponents don't know what to do. They don't know when to negate stuff. They have no idea what my deck does. And that's not just for Galaxy Eyes, that's for multiple decks throughout the years. GK, 6 Sams back in the day, people just didn't know what they did. Gear back before it got popular. There's a multitude of decks that have come out. Horse the Black Flame Dragon level 8 for a hot moment. There's a list I could write right now that I could go rattle off of decks that I've played that I've won strictly because my opponent didn't know what the heck my strategy was or what I was doing. And that's okay if you don't know the strategy, but you should at least know the deck and what its objective is. Is this deck a lockdown deck? Is this deck a stun deck? Is this deck an OTK deck? Is this deck a swarm the field deck? Is this deck a build a board deck? What does this deck do? What is it trying to accomplish? How does it function? What are its key plays? When should I ash him? Things like this. When should I drill him? What are, even in this, and it doesn't have to be for every single meta you have to know these decks, but you want a general understanding of how a deck functions, even if it is a rogue deck, because I've seen it time and time again. Rogue decks kick meta players' butts. Not all the time, but it does happen, and it's right when that meta player is about to get his top. And he thinks it's going to be an easy win, and then he gets his butt kicked because he doesn't know what he's doing. It happens. It really happens. And you've probably had this experience happen to you. So my suggestion of how to fix this is pretty straightforward here. The things you should do. You should actually play outside your playtesting group from time to time. You should also have some knowledge on other archetypes. Doesn't matter how old they are. Even if they were competitive, you should know, okay, this is how this archetype functions. This is what it does. Even if it's as simple as watching Lithium's videos on YouTube to see how he's playing the new support in a said archetype. You should at least take that information, watch that video, take it, put it in your memory bank so that you have some understanding if you face said deck in a rogue matchup in a tournament. That way you can be better prepared, more equipped, have knowledge. Because Yu-Gi-Oh!, while it is somewhat, it's part skill-based, part luck-based, part deck construction, knowledge is a key component in Yu-Gi-Oh! Knowledge of rulings, knowledge of decks, knowledge of players, knowledge of just how things work in general leads to success. So it is in your best interest to learn about rogue decks. Not just confine yourself to what's meta and only play against meta because that's what you're expecting. Because this has been shown by pro players sometimes. Little techs happen. Little decks sneak in to top cuts because people just didn't know what to do against it. They had no idea what this deck did. Maybe they did know what it did, but properly side decking is a thing because they weren't expecting it, and that's to be understood. But just losing because you don't know what the deck does, that is on you. That is strictly on the player because you maybe had the opportunity to stop it, but You just didn't know what to do. So, knowledge. Expand your knowledge in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, guys. That's what to take away from this video. Until next time, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling. Hope this video was helpful to you guys out there and you took something away from it. If you did, please leave a like down below. Or if you'd like to, please support the channel on Patreon. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you guys next time. Good luck dueling to all of you guys. Take care, everybody.
I'm feeling like I'm torn apart, like I might be nothing. You've been leaving all these scars on everything you touch, and you got me like, whoa, oh, oh.